The night Tunde Adeyemi followed his wife to the club was the night his life quietly began to burn. If someone had told him that by morning he would be questioning the paternity of his own children, he would have laughed in their face. But life, Tunde would soon learn, does not knock before it destroys you. It was a humid Friday night in Lagos, the kind of night when the city refused to sleep, the kind of night secrets came out to dance. At exactly 9:17 p.m., Tunde sat in his black Toyota Camry outside their duplex in Lekki, staring at the WhatsApp message that had just dropped on his phone. Unknown number. Your wife is not where she said she is. His jaw tightened. He read it again and again. Inside the house, the generator hummed steadily. Upstairs, his two children were asleep, or at least that was what his wife, Amara, had told him before she left. Earlier that evening, she had kissed his cheek lightly, soft, casual, too casual. I'm going. For my friend's birthday dinner, she had said, already reaching for her handbag. Tunde had barely looked up from his laptop. Okay, he replied absent-mindedly. 7 years of marriage builds dangerous levels of trust, and trust, Tunde was about to learn, can make a man blind. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. If you don't believe me, check Vibe Lounge, Victoria Island. Tunde's fingers froze over the steering wheel. His heartbeat began to thump slowly, heavily, like a drum warning of war. Vibe Lounge? Why would Amara be there? She hated clubs, or at least that was what she had always told him. A cold feeling began to crawl up his spine, the kind of feeling every married man knows but never wants to admit. Doubt. By 10:02 p.m., Tunde was driving across the Lekki Ikoyi Bridge, his grip tight on the steering wheel. Lagos glittered around him, street lights, headlights, noise, life. But inside the car, silence pressed heavily against his chest. His mind kept replaying small memories he had once ignored. The late night phone calls, the sudden gym obsession, the new perfume, the way she had recently started guarding her phone. At the time, he had brushed it aside. Don't be insecure, he had told himself. Now? Now his stomach was twisting into knots. Tunde pulled into the parking lot of Vibe Lounge. Music was already vibrating through the walls. Deep bass, wild laughter. The parking lot was packed with expensive cars, Range Rovers, Mercedes, BMWs, men with money, men with intentions. Tunde swallowed hard. For a moment, just one moment, he almost drove away. Because deep down, every man knows the moment before his heart is about to be shattered. But then, his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Go inside, she's wearing red. Tunde's blood ran cold. Slowly, carefully, he stepped out of the car. The moment he pushed open the doors of Vibe Lounge, his world tilted, lights flashed wildly, bodies moved, music roared, perfume and alcohol thickened the air, and then he saw her, Amara, his wife, the mother of his children, wearing a tight red dress he had never seen before, laughing, dancing, her hands resting very comfortably on another man's shoulders. Tunde stopped breathing. The man she was dancing with leaned close to her ear. She laughed, not the polite laugh she gave at family gatherings. No, this one was soft, intimate, familiar, like this was not their first time. Tunde's heart slammed violently against his ribs. Boom, boom, boom. Then the man's hand slid slowly, possessively, to her waist, and Amara did not move it away. Something dangerous snapped inside Tunde. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, deadly crack. For 7 years he had trusted this woman with his life. For 7 years he had believed the two children sleeping in his house were his blood. But as he stood there watching her melt into another man's arms, a terrible thought entered his mind for the first time. What else has she been lying about? And the worst part, he could not unthink it. Tunde turned and walked out of the club slowly, calmly, too calmly, because inside his chest, a storm was beginning to gather. By the time he reached his car, his hands were shaking. He sat behind the wheel, breathing hard, sweating despite the air conditioning. Then slowly, almost fearfully, he whispered to himself, "Those children." His throat tightened. "Are they really mine?" And that was the question that would soon destroy everything. If you're enjoying the story so far, tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe. Tunde did not remember driving home. Later, he would try to replay the journey in his head: the bridge, the traffic lights, the Danfo buses screaming past. But his memory of that night would remain foggy, like a nightmare his mind was trying to protect him from. What he did remember was the way his hands would not stop shaking on the steering wheel. What he did remember was the image of Amara in that red dress, laughing in another man's arms. That image had already burned itself into his brain, and it refused to leave. It was 12:18 a.m. when Tunde quietly pushed open the front door of their Lekki duplex. Everything looked normal, too normal. The soft yellow light in the sitting room, the faint hum of the generator, the family photos smiling innocently from the wall. Tunde stood there for a long moment, his chest rising and falling slowly. This house, this same house, suddenly felt like a place full of lies. Upstairs, the children were asleep. His children, or his jaw tightened. Were they? The thought came again, stronger this time, more poisonous, more persistent. Tunde dragged his hand down his face. No, no, don't start, he muttered under his breath, but doubt once born does not die quietly. He found himself walking upstairs, slowly, like a man being pulled by something he did not understand. The corridor was dim, quiet, too quiet. He stopped in front of the children's room. For a full 10 seconds, he just stood there staring at the door. His heart was pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. Then gently, he pushed the door open. Little Daniel was sprawled across the bed, one leg outside the blanket, his tiny chest rising peacefully. Beside him, 6-year-old Zara slept curled up, clutching her teddy bear. Innocent, peaceful, unaware that their father's world was collapsing downstairs. Tunde stepped closer. His throat tightened. He had changed Daniel's diapers. He had carried Zara on his shoulders. He had stayed awake through their fevers, through their coughs, through their nightmares. These were his children. They had to be. Right? Tunde crouched slowly beside the bed. His eyes moved carefully over Daniel's face, the shape of the nose, the curve of the lips, the skin tone. For the first time in 7 years, he wasn't looking at his son with love. He was looking with suspicion, and the moment he realized that, guilt stabbed sharply through his chest. "What is wrong with you?" he whispered harshly to himself. Daniel shifted in his sleep, murmured softly, and something about that small innocent sound made Tunde's chest ache painfully. But then, like a devil whispering in his ear, his mind replayed the scene at the club again. Amara, in red, laughing too freely, touching another man too comfortably. Tunde staggered, slightly to his feet, because the doubt was growing now, growing teeth. Tunde was in the kitchen drinking cold water straight from the bottle when his phone suddenly vibrated. He froze. Slowly, carefully. He picked up the phone. Unknown number. Again. His pulse jumped violently. For 3 seconds, he considered ignoring it, but something inside him, something dark and desperate, made him answer. He pressed the phone to his ear. "Hello?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then a distorted male voice spoke quietly. "You saw her, didn't you?" Tunde's grip tightened dangerously around the phone. "Who is this?" he demanded. A soft chuckle came through the line. Not friendly, not kind. Mocking. "You're asking the wrong question, Tunde." His blood ran cold. "How do you know my name?" Another small pause. Then the voice said something that made the kitchen suddenly feel too small, too tight, too suffocating. "The real question is, how sure are you that those children are yours?" The bottle slipped from Tunde's hand and crashed onto the kitchen tiles. Water spread everywhere, but Tunde didn't even notice, because at that moment, the seed of doubt planted in his heart finally began to grow roots. By 2:47 a.m., Tunde was still awake, still pacing, still replaying everything. Every memory with Amara now felt suspicious, fake, manufactured. His mind dragged up moments he had once ignored. The time she insisted on handling the children's hospital paperwork alone. The time she laughed nervously when his mother said Daniel didn't resemble him. The time she suddenly changed hospitals during her second pregnancy. At the time, they meant nothing. Now they felt like puzzle pieces falling into a terrible picture. Tunde sank into the sofa and buried his face in his hands. God, please. His voice cracked. Don't let this be what I think it is. But deep inside, fear was already answering him. At exactly 6:12 a.m., the front door opened softly. Tunde looked up sharply. Amara walked in, fresh, relaxed, still glowing faintly from last night, and the moment she saw him sitting there, something flickered briefly in her eyes. Shock, gone quickly, too quickly. You're awake early, she said carefully. Tunde stared at her, long, hard, searching her face like a detective looking for cracks. For the first time in 7 years, he was seeing his wife like a stranger, and Amara could feel it. Her smile faltered slightly. What? She asked. Tunde's voice, when he finally spoke, was dangerously calm. Did you enjoy the birthday dinner? For just half a second, Amara hesitated, and that tiny hesitation felt louder than thunder. Because in that moment, one terrifying thought settled firmly into Tunde's chest. If she can lie this smoothly, his jaw tightened slowly. What else has she lied about? And upstairs, two innocent children continued sleeping peacefully, unaware that a storm was already gathering over their lives. If you're enjoying the story so far, tell me where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe. By the time the sun rose fully over Lagos, Tunde Adeyemi was no longer the same man who had driven to Vibe Lounge the night before. Something inside him had shifted, cracked, hardened, and as Amara stood in the living room that morning, pretending everything was normal, Tunde made a silent decision that would change all their lives. He was going to find the truth, no matter who it destroyed. Why are you looking at me like that? Amara asked, forcing a small laugh. Tunde leaned back slowly on the sofa, studying her face like a stranger reading a suspicious contract. For 7 years, he had trusted this woman blindly. Now, every smile looked rehearsed, every blink looked calculated, every breath she took irritated something deep inside his chest. I just didn't sleep well, he said finally. Amara relaxed, just a little too quickly. Hmm, you work too much, she replied, already moving toward the kitchen. But Tunde was watching carefully now, and he noticed something new, something he had never noticed before. Amara was avoiding eye contact. By noon that same day, Tunde sat alone in his office in Victoria Island, staring at his laptop screen but seeing absolutely nothing. The unknown caller's words kept echoing. How sure are you that these children are yours? His chest tightened again. For hours he fought the thought, argued with it, rejected it, but doubt is like acid. Once it touches the mind, it begins to eat slowly. Finally, at exactly 12:43 p.m., Tunde picked up his phone. His voice was low, tight, controlled. Hello, I want to run a DNA test. And just like that, the countdown to disaster began. The next 2 weeks were torture, pure torture. Tunde smiled at home, played with the children, ate Amara's food, laughed when necessary. But inside he was slowly dying. Every time he looked at Daniel, every time Zara called him daddy, his chest squeezed painfully because now there was a question mark hanging over every moment. And the worst part? Amara acted perfectly normal, too normal, which only made the suspicion grow stronger. Tunde was alone in his car when the notification dropped. For a long moment, he just stared at the phone. His hands were already sweating. His heartbeat was so loud it filled the car. Boom, boom, boom. God, please. he whispered. Slowly, carefully, he opened the file. His eyes scanned the first line, then the second. Then everything inside him went cold, ice cold, because the words on the screen were clear, brutal, unforgiving. Probability of paternity 0%. Tunde stopped breathing. His vision blurred instantly. His fingers trembled violently as he scrolled down. Maybe he read it wrong. Maybe, but the second child's result was already there, waiting, like a bullet. He swallowed hard and opened it, and that was when his world finally shattered. Probability of paternity 0%. Both children, not his. Tunde did not move, did not blink, did not breathe properly. Then suddenly, he let out a broken, strangled sound, half laugh, half cry. Jesus! His hand slammed weakly against the steering wheel. 7 years. 7 years of love, school fees, hospital bills, sleepless nights, birthday parties, Father's Day drawings, all of it a lie. His chest heaved violently as tears finally spilled down his face. Not loud, not dramatic, just the quiet tears of a man whose heart had been carefully destroyed. But then something else entered his mind. A memory, sharp, clear, dangerous. The man at the club. That night, Tunde did not shout when Amara came home. He did not argue, did not accuse. He simply sat in the living room, waiting. When Amara walked in and saw his face, her steps slowed immediately. Tunde, what's wrong? His voice was deadly calm. Sit down. Her fingers tightened slightly around her handbag, but she obeyed, slowly, carefully. Tunde placed the printed DNA results on the table between them. For a moment, Amara didn't understand. Then her eyes dropped to the paper, and everything changed. The color drained from her face so fast it was almost frightening. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Tunde leaned forward slowly. His eyes were red, not from anger, from something much deeper, much more dangerous. How long? He asked quietly. Amara's hands began to shake. Tunde, I can explain. His palm slammed the table. Zara stirred upstairs. How long? Amara burst into tears immediately, and that was when the final knife entered Tunde's heart, because guilty tears never lie. She confessed through broken sobs. The truth came out. Ugly, painful, unforgivable. The man at the club was her ex. The man she never truly stopped seeing, even after marriage, even after children. Tunde sat very still as she spoke. Too still, because something inside him was quietly dying, piece by piece, word by word. When she finally finished, the room fell into heavy silence. Then slowly, Tunde stood up. Amara looked up fearfully. Tunde, please. His voice when he spoke was empty, completely empty. Pack your things. Her breath hitched. You're sending me away? Tunde's eyes were cold now, dead calm. The lawyer will contact you. And just like that, 7 years ended in one sentence. 6 months later, the Lekki duplex was quieter now, peaceful but different. Tunde stood on the balcony, watching the Lagos sunset paint the sky orange. Life had not ended, it had only changed. The divorce was finalized. Amara had moved out, and the children. He still took care of them, because love, he discovered, does not follow DNA. Behind him, small footsteps approached. Daddy? Tunde turned. Zara stood there in her pajamas, sleepy, innocent, still calling him Daddy. His chest tightened softly. He bent and carried her into his arms. Go back to bed, princess. She rested her head on his shoulder, trusting, safe, and for the first time in months, Tunde allowed himself to breathe fully, because some truths destroy you, but some choices heal you. If this story touched you, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this.